Today, I am delighted to be joined by Dominic Grounsell, Managing Director of UK and Ireland Digital for Entain, Council Member of ISBA and Non-Executive Board Member of the Marketing Society. Hello and welcome, Dom.
Hi, Fiona.
Thanks so much for joining us. And I thought I'd start with a fairly broad question today. As a leader intent on brand building, how do you make sense of it all when it comes to measuring so that you're actually confident that you're making the best decisions?
So I suppose I'd start with the question of what we mean by brand building. I think we have a tendency in the marketing industry to think about brand building as purely brand health, when actually for me, building the brand means building the business. And so in that respect, when it comes to brand building, making sense of it all is about creating the most holistic view of business performance that we can. Not just financials, not just brand health, but customer behavior, customer satisfaction, customer sentiment, and bringing that all together to create a more coherent view of how the business is operating and how it's delivering for its customers every day.
I think I really like what you've been saying there, actually, Dom, because I've noticed over the years that I've been working in the industry that there's been much more coming together of what might traditionally have been marketing and CX, and these things really are coming together, which I think is very exciting in terms of what we're doing. And I suppose if we're thinking about that as brand building, does that create complexities when it comes to measurement?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, in any organization like the one I'm in, where you are dealing with, millions of customers, all with very, very different needs, who are looking for different services and different experiences every day, it's important to make sure that you understand how the brand experience is being delivered. It's being delivered partially through marketing communications, but it's being mostly delivered through the physical interaction the customer has with your brands, which for us comes through either our computers or through mobile phones and tablets. And so getting that measurement right, understanding how the customer is interacting with your most important brand touch point is really one of the most important ways of knowing whether you're delivering the brand experience and building the brand in the way that you want it to.
Brilliant, absolutely, and you're so right about those touch points, like the apps and other aspects like that need to be really working well. In addition to obviously the brand advertising. If we get down to some of the nitty-gritty now, how do you look at doing things like pulling together first, second, and third-party data?
Well, I suppose for me, not being an analyst, it's not necessarily my area of expertise, technically how we do it. I suppose for me, what's been true for many years and in most of the businesses I've worked in is the best way to solve that thorny problem is through ensuring you've got the right talent internally with the right philosophy around how they approach the collation, organization, interrogation, operationalization of data, as well as the best technology, and making sure not just that you've got a piece of kit that works for you today, but that you're staying at the bleeding edge of what's possible technologically, whether that's MarTech, AdTech, data architecture, in order to cope with the increasing levels of complexity and variability that we see in the data landscape. If you can do that, then you have the ability to bring all that disparate data in, put it in one place, really interrogate it to make better business decisions and to figure out how to solve customer problems more effectively.
I'm just thinking as well, from what you've mentioned there, particularly around culture and thinking about brand building. And of course, we all know that brand building is very much about how people within the organization feel about the brand. And I just wonder if you've got anything else to talk about around building that culture around the brand and thinking about how you get people to measure it and understand all the things that are needed there.
I mean, that's what's been so great about the advances we've seen in measurement technology and data over the past 10, 15 years. I mean, when I started out in Unilever and roles shortly after that, the brand was something that marketing led because it was something that was touchy-feely and fluffy, and it had no commercial edge to it because we couldn't measure it properly. Now we're able to measure so much more, and so our ability to understand how different parts of our business, the capabilities we have, and therefore what we deliver to customers impacts the brand, and therefore customer preference, customer sales, revenues. It's so much sharper now. And so these improvements and advances actually make everybody feel part of delivery of the brand for the first time, in my view, rather than that's what marketing does and we do something else.
That's fascinating that technology is really enabling us to be better brand marketers.
Indeed, and not just brand marketers within marketing, but everybody feeling like a brand marketer, because the brand is delivered by the totality of the organization. Yes, and there's much more of this kind of bringing together the holistic understanding, how customers are picking things up, how people in an organization are feeling, which personally I have to say that I love. And it kind of brings me to my final question, which is, you touched on working at Unilever. You've obviously worked at many different companies, Dom. How do you think that different businesses are making sense of it all when it comes to things like measurement? I mean, I think it's clear, I've worked in 7 different businesses and every time a different category. So I've seen it done in many different ways. And it is entirely situational. The availability of data, your proximity to the customer, whether you're an intermediated business or not, all of that determines the right flavor of data measurements for your organization. For us, we are very close to the customer. We're very data rich, and therefore the requirements we have around how we understand that data and use it to drive our decisions every day are very different to organizations I've worked in that don't have that capability. And so for me, I see it as a maturity curve that businesses will go on. And for me, the challenge that comes with that is the industry narrative is too often that there's a one size fits all and a best practice. And actually, I think best practice is best defined by your situation rather than by any industry standard.
Brilliant. Well, I think we've come to the end of our session now, Dom, but thank you so much for helping us to make sense of it all.
Thank you so much.